Hi guys, welcome to NGN. I'm here with Steven and Tom. They're here straight from 1996 to talk about their new game, STRAFE. So, why don't you take it away? Tell me about STRAFE.
STRAFE is a roguelike first-person shooter that is a throwback to the mid-90s. So it's super fast, super gory, and there's a bunch of secrets.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind when you see STRAFE is like Doom or Quake or any of those classic FPSs. Is that the kind of vibe that you're going for when you're making this game?
Our two biggest inspirations were Quake, like first and foremost. Of course, all the shooters from the mid-90s that we played and loved like growing up kind of worked their way in there, as well as just a bunch of other unique ideas that we felt fit the time period, as well as from the roguelike spectrum, more like Spelunky than other roguelikes that may have like meta unlocks and little things like that.
Yeah, so when you're trying to kind of make this homage to some of the classics, what do you think is really necessary to capture that feeling that you got when you first played these, 20 years ago?
Oh, I think there's a ton of things. Other than just like the violence and the aesthetic and things like that, I think the core gameplay loop needs to be focused on good level design. When you go to Quake, there's, it needs to have multiple paths for the enemies to take, verticality, just, foster speed so that there's an offense as defense, like, proponent to the combat. Another big thing is our enemies, any enemies that are ranged are going to do projectile-based attacks at you, no hit scans, so that you always have the sense of like dodging the fire or strafing around the fire.
Oh, I see, gotcha.
So you kind of trying to take a lot of these elements and then say, what have we learned in the last 20 years to kind of elevate that and make it interesting and new.
Cool, so you get this kind of fresh take on a past classic, but you also, like you said, you're bringing some new things into it. Are these things that, like looking back 20 years later, are they kind of like retrospective jokes about the 90s, or is it, well, what's this new stuff that you're bringing into STRAFE?
Well, the game is relatively straightforward as far as, it's not a joke game. It's not just built off the nostalgia. We're hoping that gets people in the door, but we've been working on the game for over 2.5 years now. We'll be about 3 years when we release. Just making sure that there is a plethora of like content and things to discover, deep systems that seem, you can enjoy them just by scratching the surface, but as you dig in, you're able to find more. So like the simplest, let's say, modification we did to the old genre was when we had the discussion of grenades. It was like, those weren't really common at that time period. Also, like, you're not going to have a button just to melee. So in doing so, we took the exploding barrels and added a whole nother mechanic with them, where instead of just shooting them and trying to kite enemies towards them, you can pick them up and use them as a grenade. You could throw them at enemies.
Oh.
But as you're holding them, you're also vulnerable because if you get shot, they blow up in your face.
Cool, nice tweaks, stuff like that. You mentioned you've been working on it for 3 years. It sounds like you guys are coming out, though, kind of at the point where just all of a sudden there's all this 90s like nostalgia in spades. There's actually new Doom and Quake Champions is on the way. Do you feel like you've just got absurdly lucky with the timing, or is this something that's been building?
I think that it's a lot of the developers, a lot of the people who are like now getting to the age where they're making games and very interested are the kids that were like when Quake, N64, PlayStation was out. So it's no longer all 8-bit nostalgia. It's no longer the stuff that's just side-scrolling, but now it's primitive 3D. It's shooters at their prime. We saw that shooters kind of went a different route, which I still think is enjoyable, but it was a shame that it came at the expense of the fast shooters. And now after I think 5, 6, 7 year period where things started to slow down and become more realistic, we saw, I guess at the same time we felt it, other developers going, no, let's kind of like go back to the roots.
Let's kind of go to the fun side again. Let's snap back a little bit, and now there's kind of a mix of everything. So I have to ask you though, have you guys seen this game, on a 10 series card yet? What's that look like?
I would say photorealistic.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to keep the game over 30 frames because we're just rendering like.
It looks like a really demanding game.
Yeah, everything's volumetric.
Yeah.
And by that I mean even matter. Like every table, every chair, every enemy. We're not only rendering every cell of that being, but we're also like emotions.
Yeah.
Wants in life, memories, like wishes. So.
Yeah, every pixel has its own like unique backstory as it's being rendered. Yeah.
Additionally, we're using the cards to data mine bitcoins on everyone's systems in the background. So. Come on.
So close. I lost it. Well, no, it sounds like you guys have a great sense of humor and a really interesting take on some old classics that you're kind of bringing into the modern world. A bit of a twist and a love and look back. It sounds like a fascinating game that I'm looking forward to checking out. When's it ready?
Early next year, PC, Mac, maybe Linux.
Cool. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you.
Steven, thank you guys for tuning in to NGN.